like you to the blind of mine. Before you put on a show, I just wanted you to know, for you I've got all of the time. You knew where I would be, and you followed my eyes when it got cold. You knew I would be by your side. You used the maggots in your smile, and after we spoke for a while, I knew that we would be riding life instead. Turning around, I got you twirling around. I've got the safest horses, you come back to the ground. Spinning around, our thoughts are spinning around. Tell me your favorite way to fly, no one can catch us now. You say you know me, but there's wiser words in the young. I think we've only just begun. And as for the letter, well, I could have no better still. I just wanted you to know, I don't know where I am right now. I struggle to make it, but we got there somehow. You spent the time to get your good on just right, and I hung it on the door so it can last us the night. You knew where I would be, and you followed my eyes when it got cold. You knew I would be by your side. You used the maggots in your smile, and after we spoke for a while, I knew that we would be riding life instead.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Coach's Corner, where we learn how to stun our opponents on solo queue, brought to you by Summoner School Events. Here I have today Rika on how to become a top lane menace, the tank, and the carry. Rika, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
No problem. Just want to do a quick shout out to Summoner School Events once again. I know I've been talking a lot about it, but their show Learning Fives, their program Learning Fives, will be starting in the next couple weeks here, and we do have a lot of collaboration that will be going on, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But currently, we are here with a top lane menace, top lane god of sorts, Rika. We're going to be going over our keys of the game here, movement, patience, and timing. So, Rika, without further ado, shall we get into things?
Let's do it.
All right, man. So, let's get on into the replay. I'm going to start it up here, all right?
Yep.
All right. So, we are going to be moving on to the Rift here, ladies and gentlemen. Why don't you just take the time, as we usually do, as minions are spawning here, to go over runes and masteries, and maybe just a little bit about the top lane matchup that we have going on here.
Okay, sure. I just take like a general rune page with Garen. I don't do anything special, just flat armor, flat magic resist, and then just flat damage in Quints and Reds. And then for masteries, I like to do 921 while taking the double-edged sword mastery, so you deal more damage while taking more, and then you take the 21 defensive masteries. That way you can deal damage while being tanky. And then also, I kind of picked Garen in this comp because we have 4 squishy members, basically, while a very good AP presence from both Zyra and Fizz. Plus Garen's really strong, so I can deal damage while being a tank. So it fit pretty well in the comp, so that's why I ended up picking him.
Alright, cool. So we do have, as you said, a Garen versus Gangplank matchup. Both of them considered to be pretty OP at the moment, or at least highly contested picks. Talk to me a little bit here. You're starting Razorbeaks, as they're called, to get that level 2 advantage, and then you're going to go ahead and TP onto top lane. Can you just let me know what are some of the advantages to doing that? Maybe an upside downside kind of thing, and is there any reason why you wouldn't do that? So step me through that.
Sure. So with any champion, when I'm going top lane that can do a camp at level 1 when you take teleport, I usually do more often than not. Upside being you can come into the lane with a golden experience advantage if your opponent decides to not do a camp level 1. Also, if they do decide to do a camp, you can match them with golden experience, and then there's not too much of a downside to it. I mean, the only downside to it is if it's going to push to you first if they're in lane and not doing a camp. And if you're uncomfortable hitting under tower, last hitting under tower, that could be a problem. But other than that, there's not too much of a downside to it, so it's just better to do it.
Sure, and you're going to use your TP here in a minute. And just so everybody knows, usually by time that TP is up, or by time you need your TP again, it's most likely going to be up. It's about a 4-minute cooldown if you TP to the tower, correct?
Yeah, you TP to the tower 4 minutes. I mean, within 4 minutes, I mean, as long as your sustain's fine, there's no reason to go back before the 4 minutes are up. I mean, you might get an item you can go back for when your TP's up, so you'll be okay for a while.
Alright, so we're going to see you here sort of shoving in a little bit, not super quickly. As you can see, you're not autoing every minion, but you are going to actually shove in here. Talk to me a little bit about why you do that, and maybe just a little bit about the Garen matchup in general, because Garen is somewhat of a lane bully early. So yeah, step me through that a little bit.
Okay, I just wanted to see, like, I kind of feel out my opponent first, kind of see how he's reacting. He's playing super passively, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to eventually shove it into him, but I want to shove to where he can't freeze it. So I'm waiting for my wave to build up, and then when this next wave hits, I can clear it pretty quickly, and get my whole wave to hit his tower. Because if I just have, like, one wave on one wave, it's okay for him to try to freeze it here, but if I build up, you know, a wave and a half or 2 waves, it's kind of hard for him to do that. That way I can get it to his tower, and that way it'll push back to me about when the jungler comes to start looking for ganks.
Absolutely, and speaking of which, at around the 3-minute mark is general timing for when junglers tend to make their way up to the top side, assuming they did sort of the bottom to top route. I think you went to go place a ward, but you had actually already used your ward. You know, just, I guess, make sure you use your ward top laners. is the moral of that story. Because
Yeah.
as a jungle main, we do definitely look to see if you guys are overextending. Now, right there, you do go for a pretty ambitious trade. You chunk him down quite a bit. Can you talk to me a little bit just about sort of like that timing around what you just did and sort of punishing for CSing?
Sure, yeah. A lot of times laners will, especially ones like Gangplank that try to last hit with their Qs, they'll walk up to last hit a Q and just want to run away. If you don't have a minion that you're going to last hit, you can actually just walk right up to them and trade with them, because they're going to use their main spell, being the Q on Gangplank, to last hit, and then they can't trade with you. So you're punishing them to take a last hit. You know, you're trying to gain an advantage in every little spot that you can.
Yeah, and I think that's a extremely important bit right there, as you missed the cannon.
Yeah.
You know, just being able to eke out little advantages, like being able to sort of feel out your opponent in lane is generally done in the first like couple minion waves. Just knowing, are they an aggressive opponent? Are they looking to trade all the time? Are they going to annoy me when I CS? And honestly, you know, just those little things can play into getting underneath someone's skin or in their head about it. Like, he knows that if he walks up just a little bit too far to go for a CS, he's probably going to get harassed, right? So that's something that you sort of have just established in that lane, knowing that you're Garen, you're sort of an annoying lane bully with a lot of sustain, and versus a Gangplank that's sort of a late game hyper carry of sorts in the top lane.
Yep.
So, as we sort of see us up here until level 6, it's a little bit basic, but at the same time prevalent in every single lane. Talk to me a little bit about knowing sort of the enemy's damage output at 6 and preparing for that level 6.
Yeah, so in any matchup, you gotta know like what the power spikes for champions are. Obviously, when Garen hits level 6, his power spike and kill potential on you goes up exponentially. So here I hit level 6. Gangplank, being smart here, recognizes that I can just kill him in one combo and he's going to back off because he's smart. Because once I hit 6 here, if he would have stayed, I would have just straight up dove him. I would have just flash silenced him and ulted him, and he's dead. So
yeah, and I think that's actually a super good point to note on the Gangplank side, is that, you know, knowing that this is a high elo match, knowing that he will just straight up die, missing those creeps is worth it to not die. So you're going to go ahead and actually roam mid here. Your tower, or your wave is pushed to tower, you have TP available, and you have an extremely strong ultimate here. So walk me through a little bit of what's going on here.
yeah, so I mean, there's not a whole lot going on top lane. I just shoved the wave forward, and then I made a roam bot, because made a roam mid, because even if he TP or shoves my lane, I can just TP to recover. So Riven uses all of her dashes to go in. I kind of take too long. I get over ambitious here. I think I actually burned my flash. Yeah, she got her shield off before I Q'd her. If she didn't, I probably could have killed her with my ult. But I mean, you know, it's half seconds that make the difference.
Right. So at the end of the day, you know, you don't actually miss much at all top lane, and it was sort of like you know, you could have gotten an advantage there, but there wasn't a whole lot that was going to go wrong for you there, I guess. So it was sort of just a free, hey, let's see if we can get something done. And we'll talk about it a little bit later in this replay too, but it also just sends a message to the mid laner saying, hey, look, you know, if you're going to be this aggressive, and if I'm winning my lane top, as you miss another cannon.
Dude, I missed 2 now. It's not good.
Kind of bad. But yeah, you know, it sends a message saying, hey, be careful if you're going to overextend that far, right?
Right.
So yeah. You used your TP there to get back to lane. During this time here, we're just going to see you sort of CS up and just straight up bully this Gangplank. Can you talk to me a little bit about sort of TP usage and how you sort of actively go about looking for advantageous plays around the map, or sort of the instances in which a top laner should be looking for a TP play?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of times, you know, people think, okay, you're just going to counter, you're going to TP bot for like a counter. Well, there's actually a lot of different ways you can use it. One of the ways I like to use it mostly is to, you know, like I did earlier, use it as a roam and then kind of recover back top lane and catch all the farm when my lane opponent pushes. Also, what you can do is you can counter a lane gank bot. So like Fizz gank spot here, if Gangplank had TP up, he could counter to that, which would be a very nice surprise for them. You can also communicate with your team to kind of put wards down to help you get a better TP off. Also, you can teleport into team fights like at Dragon and stuff while splitting. It's just, there's a lot of opportunities to use it for. It's just kind of learning when and where to use it.
and also just being active on the map. Making sure that you're paying attention to other lanes and things like that. Being opportunistic, making sure you don't miss an opportunity. Those kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, as a top laner, a lot of times, like you see here, we're just kind of farming. There's not a whole lot going on. I actually missed the CS because I'm watching bot. But during this time where you're kind of just, it's boring CSing, just last hitting, not a whole lot of trading going on. Look at different parts of the map. Look at who's doing good bot, who's doing good mid. Is my team winning? Is my team losing? That'll influence your decision on when and where you can TP and what's better opportunities than other ones.
Yeah, and that's, I think, super important too. And a lot of things sort of go along with that too. You don't have a ward down, but you actually just know where their jungler is. You've been watching the fight bot. You know that you have pretty much zero risk of getting ganked, and at the same time, you know that you're pretty far ahead in terms of power-wise of this Gangplank, so you shouldn't really have too much issue with him. So, yeah, I mean, just watching the map and sort of seeing how things play out definitely is a good pastime of the top lane.
Yeah, exactly. That's where that island mentality comes into effect.
Exactly. Especially while TP's down, not a whole lot you can do here. But,
Yep.
So talk to me a little bit now. You're just sort of proxy farming your way around this. You are acquiring somewhat of a CS lead here. You haven't really gone to look to kill GP, and you're starting your roam for the second time bot lane. Talk to me a little bit more about just roaming down, especially now that you've done it more than once, and just sort of the implications of that.
Okay, so yeah, I do a little backlining so he can't pressure my tower too much. I'm gonna roam mid on Riven here. I believe we actually end up killing her. So I'm kind of I'm pinging Yasuo to get over there. This kind of messes with the mentality of Riven. Because now that I've come twice and I actually kill her the second time, every time I shove the GP's tower and then I go off the minimap, she's going to think I'm coming mid. So I could just be recalled, and then she automatically thinks I'm coming mid, and then it gives Yasuo a release pressure for him, makes his life easier, and then, I'm affecting 2 lanes by I've roamed twice and I missed no CS. It's that easy, really.
Yeah, and as we just talked about earlier, too, that mentality of mid, for any of you mid players watching or just knowing, or playing mid in general, it's a very, very fragile lane. You got a lot of gank options, a lot of people can be coming at you, and especially the worst feeling in the world is when you start to go aggressive on someone mid and you look up and you realize your top laner shoved a turret and their top laner is MIA, and you're just like, there's a very real possibility I'm about to get destroyed here by their top laner, and that ends up becoming a huge part of sort of that decision making. That mentality of that mid laner, knowing that if I shove too far, I could be ganked even by my top laner, not just by my jungler. So we're gonna see here. I think you go ahead and TP down for this dragon fight. I want you to sort of set me through your decision process here on who you're targeting, because I think that's pretty key. And I think right here you TP.
Yep. I see Jinx kind of overextend a little bit on Fizz, and then Zyra's actually going to cut them off. So I know we can catch at least 2 of them, so that's when I decided to TP. Jinx is by herself, so that was the easy decision for me to go in. I'm going to try to save Fizz off Gragas. He's out of the fight, so instantly the next person that's the biggest target is going to be Riven, so I go after Riven. Try to peel him off Yasuo. Riven then leaves the fight right there with a flash, so then I just go back on GP. I take a little bit to do it, but I'm going to go back on GP to help Lucian out. It's kind of like going through a progression in the fight, right? You kind of find whoever's the biggest target, whoever teammate you can save, the biggest priority, because my target changed about 3 or 4 times there.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's super key. What you said is just the biggest priority target or the biggest impact in that team fight. So, as we started out, you killed the Jinx, easy teleport play in, and then the Riven is that main source of damage, that player that can really change the dynamic of the fight. You then went for Riven. When Riven was pushed out of the fight or gone or dead, like right now, you switched your target to the next focus, which was GP, who's the next biggest player in that fight. So I think not just going after the random targets in the fight or the easy kill, but more focusing on what's going to be able to help my team win that fight. There's a mentality, especially as a top laner, because you're usually a tankier, damage soaker. I think that's super important to have in mind when you go into a team fight.
Right.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about this gank top here. Sort of the patience that goes along with this gank and the movement specifically with the map awareness. Talk me through this, because this is pretty awesome.
So Gragas comes in, I dodge the body slam. I also know Gragas has ult up. So he's going to ult right here. I just kind of run to the side so I don't get hit by it. I believe I dodged another body slam. Okay, I get hit by that one, but I'm out of GP's ult. I dodged the barrels here, and I'm kind of baiting for Fizz and Zyra to come up and help me, because I knew they were coming over. So there's no real kill threat, so I can go in on Gragas. Soraka shows up. I think Riven shows up. So I get the hell out of there when Riven shows up. She's exhausted though, so I can go back in, give her a silence. We end up finishing her off. And then Jinx comes in for the cleanup. So here I'm saying I'm screwed. I start taking off. I'm basically just wasting time for Zyra and Yasuo to come. I dodge the W, waiting for Zyra and Yasuo to come in. Pop my W, silence, and I think I lived with like 50 health or something like that. But I dodged like 4 or 5 abilities there, which made the difference. If I would have got hit by the Gragas ult, the Jinx W, the GP barrel, the GP ults, anything like that makes a difference. So just being able to move and predict when abilities are going to be casted and just, mitigate 50 to 100 damage means the difference between you living and dying.
Absolutely, we saw it there, and this has been a sort of a constant theme too in the Coaches Corners episodes. Being able to sort of think about that next step, not just think about, hey, I'm getting ganked, I got to get the hell out of there, but instead, hey, I'm getting ganked. Look at the mini-map. I have all of my teammates coming in to help and flank this fight, to counter-gank this fight, so I need to know when I can then re-engage, because we saw, including the BM here, but we saw...
I don't like Riven. I don't like Rivens.
Who does? But we saw you sort of re-engage that fight maybe 5-6 different times when your cooldowns were available, and sort of scooting in and dodging in to get a silence here, to get a little bit of damage there, and then, pop back out of that fight when another damage source or threat came in, like that Riven, until she was exhausted when you came in and stuck her with another silence, which as a Riven is not going to give her a very good day. So,
right.
And all of that is sort of, it's reactionary, but it was set up by the fact that you knew that you had help coming, you knew that you're Garen, you're decently tanky, you have a silence, and Riven is pretty much all ability based. So, knowing, sort of predicting / thinking about that one step further has been a huge theme throughout every episode, but especially you can just see how much that paid off there in that fight. Yeah. So, let's also talk a little bit about patience here, as we see you sort of demoralize this Gangplank here.
This poor Gangplank who has my OP passive on him.
Unfortunately, going to die. You're 6-0-2. Now, you haven't actually killed your... You've never actually solo killed him in lane. So, and I think in any league there's this idea that you have to kill your opponent to be ahead, or you have to, just kill your opponent to be ahead, and you're 6-0 and you've never actually solo killed him in lane. So talk to me a little bit about the patience that goes into, accruing a gold lead through other ways, or even just out-CSing him, which you are.
Yeah, so it goes back to the beginning where I was kind of punishing him for every CS. It goes into, as long as you're last hitting your CSs, you have a little more pressure in lane, just being able to force it. You just got to be patient. How many times, I don't know how many times I've seen laners that have the lead and they go super aggro because they think they can kill their lane opponent and end up overcommitting and get ganked, or they get hit by an exhaust and they die, and all of a sudden their lead's out the window. It's all about calculation. If you're ahead, play it patiently, play it safely, know when to go in and out throughout the whole game.
Yep, absolutely. And I think, especially for me, who's a very aggressive player, I always try to look for that kill, but as soon as I slow it down and I start looking for opportunities as opposed to trying to force my opportunities, that's when I actually end up getting my kills. And we're going to see you just solo out Jinxer as their team just sort of scatters to
Everybody left her, so I was like, okay, free ADC.
Yeah.
And then at this point, they're all low from the mid skirmish, so I can kind of just steamroll through them. Soraka's going to be judgmented upon. And then Lucian's kind of pincered them. He's going to clean up the couple kills here. Being that far ahead is kind of easy at that point, but it just goes into, I never solo killed my lane opponent, but because of one good timing TP and the lane pressure that I provided mid, we're rolling it into a humongous lead, and I never killed my lane opponent. It's not a necessity, it's just something that, if you can, go ahead. If not, it's okay.
And we will see here that you do try to get this Santa Claus rather. However,
Yeah.
he does slip out. Do you want to explain a little bit about maybe something you could have done here to possibly have picked up that kill?
Yeah, I made a positioning error. Knowing he had body slam coming up his E, I should have positioned myself to the bottom of him. That way he couldn't go through the wall or through that way, since I had Zyra and Yasuo coming from the top side of him to cut him off. Instead, I kind of walked forward on him, and then he was able to dash through the wall. And then we kind of overextended there and went a little ham, but yeah.
Alright, so I want to talk about this next play coming up here. You don't actually go back, because why would you? You're Garen.
Yeah, exactly.
You almost get this kill on Gangplank, but I want to talk a little bit about understanding sort of team comps and late game power of individual champions or even compositions. Because if you look at their team comp, you have Gangplank, who's just an absolute menace late game. Riven, who does, you know, always pretty damn relevant and has some kills. Jinx, obviously a hyper carry. Soraka is going to be a super big issue late game too. And even though you are very far ahead in this game, it's 20 minutes into the game and it's solo queue. And let me repeat that last part, it's solo queue, right? So unfortunately you do actually go down here. And you give 500 gold to a potential hyper carry, right? So
Yeah, I think it actually prompts Fizz to die too.
it does, yeah. Or,
And I think Zyra does as well.
yeah,
So yeah,
it's just sort of snowballs. Unfortunately, it wasn't necessarily your fault for them to go in, but it sort of snowballs that solo queue mentality of we're ahead, I can solo anybody, I'm Yasuo, I can outplay anybody and kill Gangplank. But, you know, a few of you guys end up dying there, and it's not that that play doesn't actually end up causing you guys to really lose any sort of advantage you have. But I can think of a million different games in which that does, and that has, right?
yeah, especially against that team.
Yeah, I mean, they have a very late scaling team, and, you know, there's just never really a good reason for you to say, here, have 500 gold. You know, like, here's 500 gold for free, instead of I could have just backed and not given you 500 gold, you know? And
Yeah,
I don't want to bash you particularly too much, but it's more of the just knowing what that does, right? So, like, talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where, I mean, did I really have to kill Gangplank there? No, I already have 8 kills. I'm already super fed, and he's already behind. The only thing that could happen there to his advantage would be to kill me, like he did. I mean, if I kill him, I get a small amount of gold. I already have a huge lead, but then if I throw right there, he gets a huge gold increase, and say the next team fight goes bad, all of a sudden the game starts getting scary, especially against that team.
Right.
Then it goes into your mentality of your teams, like, oh, you threw this play, and now they're winning, it's your fault. It's just, you know, it's just an unnecessary risk that I took. Ended up not costing me this game, which was great, but there's, like you said, there's many other times where it does, and it's just an unnecessary risk to take.
Absolutely, and solo queue is just so unpredictable too.
Exactly.
You know, it's sort of just not worth it. But here we are. We see you just being annoying as hell, being Garen, trying to
Yep.
just sort of annoy everybody.
But he had
Because the
smite,
champion
so
does.
I'm sad as I run away from red buff.
Yeah. So we're actually going to see a pretty good play that we're going to break down for you starting in about
Yeah,
10
actually gonna
seconds.
pause it at 2240, I think.
Yep. So here we go. We're gonna see you teleport. I'm gonna pause it when we get there. So 2240. We're gonna see you go in. And I'm gonna pause it right here. Oh, just kidding. My game won't pause.
Yeah, mine's not pausing. But
Oh, there we
anyway,
go. I got you. I'm gonna actually pause it. But
can we go back?
technology. All right.
Replays. Anyway, so
We'll talk it through. I'm gonna go to 2240 and let it go.
okay.
All right.
So I'm gonna go to. I'll let you know when I'm at 2240 then.
I'll back it up again. Baron replay. Best replay system around, guys.
Yeah, I don't recommend it.
Let me know when you're there.
Okay, 1 second. And now. Okay, so now we got it. I've TP'd in. I'm kind of keeping them in an awkward stage. Do they commit? Do they run? Because I see Lucian and Zyra coming in for the flank. I kind of keep them in that, you know, let's fight, but all of a sudden we get flanked. It's like a thing where you just gotta bait them in without overcommitting yourself, so you don't die before your team gets there. Also, goes in with the map awareness of being able to know when your team's going to get there and how far you can commit. When I TP'd in being tanky, I didn't run at them and I didn't really run away. I kind of just stood there in their faces and let them make the decision. If they run away, I can chase them then. If they run at me, I can kind of bait them back. As we chase here, I think he picks the kill on Gragas, but I'm chasing for no reason. And it just goes into that mentality of, okay, I need to let them make the decision while keeping my team, keeping them interested and letting my team do a lot of the work for me.
Right. And I think it's that sort of dance we're going to see as this game ends here, of sort of baiting them to play, kind of, like, hey, I'm Garen, I'm tanky, but there's also like 5 of you on me, so there is a chance I could die.
Right, and then I'm this big juicy target that they want to kill anyway, so like, okay, if we kill Garen, this is going to be really good.
Right. And so it's sort of that dance of keeping them interested, but not overcommitting, because that also sends a message of, hey, maybe my team's collapsing, right?
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, we weren't able to pause there because technology. But yeah, I think that as we go back into our discussion here, I think that's actually a super important point of how to play a tank, especially if you do some damage, especially if you see your team on the move. Being able to just sort of do that dance is, I guess, a skill, an art, a bait, right? But extremely important, right?
Yeah, especially as a tank, and TPing in like that, it's knowing when and where you can do that, like how strong people are, how strong you are, what cooldowns have been used, what haven't been, being able to kind of keep them interested without dying. So. Absolutely.
All right, so let's briefly go over the 3 keys of the game here, and as we do that, let's start funneling in those questions into chat. This was a very sort of one-sided game, but at the same time I think there was a lot of good content in terms of how to snowball your lead. But if you have any questions, particularly on what happens if you're not that far ahead or things like that, shoot them in a chat. We're going to get right into that after we go over the keys of the game. So why don't you just briefly summary these 3 keys of the game for me?
Okay, so like I said earlier with the patience, like you touched on earlier, I never didn't go super aggressive on Gangplank. I kind of just, provided some pressure while out CSing him and kind of waited for my opportunity to really, make my lead known, which was when I TP'd in Dragon. That's when my snowball started. It made it easier for me in lane after that point, and then I was super impactful rather than Gangplank. Then when they did try to deal with me with the Gragas, I think Gragas ganked me. Yeah, I was able to move the right way and position myself to dodge a lot of the damage. Ended up helping out because I only lived with like 50 health. But I dodged the Gangplank ult, dodged the Gragas ult, I dodged one body slam, Jinx's W. I mean, if you're able to move around and dodge cooldowns like that, it swings fights big time, especially if you're the damage soaker, like you're the tank that's supposed to soak up as much damage as possible before dying. It makes a big difference in fights for your team. They like stuff like that, especially if you get to live at the end. It's awesome. And then I guess just with timing with the teleports, like the Dragon one, I could have teleported earlier, but my team wasn't in really a big position to take advantage of it. And then I waited for Zyra to actually flank Jinx, who was overcommitted on Fizz. That's when I teleported in, and it was too late for Jinx to react. It didn't matter what she did at that point; she was dead. So I guess that's really the big 3 keys of the game, just to kind of practice that and look over that and know when and where.
Absolutely. All right, so let's start getting into some of these questions. Let the questions pour in, as I'm sure we can get to a bunch of them here, as that was a little bit of a shorter replay. So I'm just going to go straight off the bat. First question I see, when do you like to upgrade your trinket?
Anytime, as soon as I hit level 9, anytime I go back and I have 250 extra gold, I just upgrade it right away. Whether you get the yellow trinket, the red trinket, it doesn't matter. But as soon as I get 250 gold to spare, I upgrade it as soon as possible. It's really valuable and helps your team out a lot.
How about when would be the latest time you would want to upgrade your trinket?
The latest time?
Like when? Like you go back and it's X amount of time and you haven't. You just say, well, I really should have upgraded my trinket.
Well, I guess you probably. I mean, depending if it's like anything past 20 minutes, you should probably upgrade your trinket. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're out of lane phase and you're level 9. If you like get the yellow trinket or the red trinket, that's going to help your team a lot with establishing vision and clearing vision, since you're all going to start grouping and stuff. So try to get it right when lane phase ends. I mean, if lane phase just stays forever and you're like level 10, 11 in lane phase, you don't necessarily have to. But when your team's grouping and you're moving for objectives and stuff, yeah, you need to upgrade your trinket and help your team out with vision.
Definitely. All right, so here's a very familiar, unfortunately, situation. So, question from chat reads, I'm going to summarize, but I often find myself around 10 minutes into the game where I can't stay in lane without dying and I'm losing trades and I get punished for CSing. What's something that I should do in that situation?
I'm guessing this is top lane, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I mean, depending on the champion you're playing, you just got to be patient. That goes into patience. You just got to, you got to be super safe. If you think that you're not too far behind where your jungler can actually get a kill and give you pressure, I mean, your jungler can just come up so you can safely CS. If he can spare a couple minutes where you can just get some gold and get back and get an item, that would be okay. Otherwise, if you're a champion that has a lot of CC, try to find a good place, a good time to roam mid safely. Other than that, though, you're never going to... If the other opponent's good and he's already beating you, you're not going to come back solo one-on-one. It's just not going to happen. You just got to CS as safely as possible and kind of camp under your tower. Other than that, though, like I said, if you have a lot of CC, maybe go roam mid. But, I mean, if you do that, they're going to shove to your tower and you're going to miss more CS. It's just a balance. So probably I would just say farm as safely as you can. And maybe call for some jungle pressure so you can get a little more CS and back. Probably it.
Yeah, and something that we touched on last time for, I believe it was the jungling episode 2, is just a lot of times junglers shouldn't/won't come up to gank the losing lane, especially if you're that behind, because the risk reward is not worth it. Because if their enemy laner can if there's a chance their enemy laner can 2v1 you, it's probably not a good idea. And so something that we talked about last time too, and now that we have obviously the top lane guru here, just being able to allow your jungler to help the other lanes, especially if they're winning, and just sort of take the CS you can and try not to fall even farther behind can sometimes just be the right answer.
Yeah, it's just minimizing risk or minimizing your deficit. So like, say you 1v1'd your lane opponent and you lost the duel. Okay, your next objective should be to not die in lane again. That should be your main focus. Okay, I don't care if I miss a wave of CS. I don't care if I'm 10 CS behind. I'm just not going to die again in lane. Due to ganks, due to 1v1s, anything. That's my main focus. Is if I do lose a 1v1, my next play is I will not die 1v1 again in lane phase.
Yeah, I think that's a super valuable mentality, because then sometimes it goes the other way, which is, all right, he killed me, I have to kill him.
Right, you get into that, like, I need the
the
revenge, right? And then all of a sudden they start snowballing on you, and then you're useless the rest of the game, rather than if you were just patient and just farmed what you could, and then not giving them any more gold. So yeah, just play safe and be patient, man.
All right, let's move on to another question. A lot of these have to do with Riven, so I'm going to combine a few.
It's because I said I hate Riven, probably.
Yeah, most people do. So, what is your favorite start against a Riven? And also, I saw another one. How do you deal with a Riven in lane, especially as a squishier champion like Gnar? We'll combine
if you're
those.
Playing... Okay, so, like, item start-wise, or who do I pick into Riven? Because what items I start
Depends who you
varies.
pick, yeah. So let's split it into as Gnar, what item would you pick into Riven, and how do you sort of go about playing that lane?
As Gnar, I usually I like to go super defensive as Gnar against Riven, because once you hit level 9 or so, you start to win that matchup. Believe it or not, because once you start stack some armor and you get Mega Gnar, you start to win that matchup pretty hard. The problem is if you get all in like before level 6 or at level 6, you lose that matchup super hard because she snowballs. So that's like, we're sticking on this theme of patience. That's like the biggest lane you have to be patient in. I sometimes go boots against a Riven, or just go 4 pots. That way I can just kind of mitigate the mobility, because she's probably going to go Longsword, Duran's Blade, or even like if she's a passive Riven, she'll go cloth armor, so you can outmaneuver her, and then always save your jump. If you don't have your jump on, if your jump's on cooldown, never walk up. Always walk, because her E and Qs are always going to be a lower cooldown than your E. So save your E to bail you out if she goes super aggressive on you, and then just use your long Q to farm until your E comes back up. Because I can't tell you how many times when I first started that matchup when Gnar came out, where I'd jump away, and then I'd walk back up because she backed off and went up for a CS, and then she just all into me when her skills came back up. I'm like, oh, I don't have E anymore, and I die. So yeah, just be super cautious when your E's down. Other than that, wait till like level 9 or 10 when you have a couple armor items and maybe a phage, and then you start winning the matchup.
I think my first Coach's Corner shirt is going to be Coach's Corner, and then patience on the back, dash right there. Seems to be a pretty big theme here today.
It's like in quotes and then me.
Yeah, just your face, like. But yeah, that's actually I just picked up playing a little bit more top lane too, and I've been reading a lot of guides and things like that from high elo players, and like a lot of champions take a few levels to really get going. Specifically like Vladimir, who I was learning to play. You can't really do anything as Vladimir until you're about level 9. That's around when you start like actually being able to do something. Right? Yep. Doesn't mean you have to like go all in, but it seems like patience really is sort of the answer to top lane, and can obviously be brought into the other lanes as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that's something, as I'm starting to try to learn another lane here, that definitely seems to be a pretty big impact, is patience. Let's do a few more questions here. Okay, I like this one. When do you feel like it is When do you feel like it is appropriate to use your TP to get back to lane as opposed to saving it to gank a lane or get to a fight?
So that ties into when dragons up. So like early in the game, the first dragon, you kind of have to look at will my team be contesting a dragon, or will we be going for dragon soon? Because if so, it's okay to miss half a wave of CS walking to lane and then being able to TP for a dragon fight. Other than that, if there's nothing really going on, bot lane, they're kind of just, it's like a Soraka lane, they're kind of just going back and forth. Dragon's down. If there's a big wave pushing to your tower, by all means TP to top and get that wave, man. Especially if you're in a deadlock even matchup top lane, where it's just a skill matchup. If you miss a wave of CS, all of a sudden they hit level 6 like a couple minions before you, they can pressure you out of lane and win the matchup. So I mean, it's just if you're losing a huge wave, or there's an objective fight going to come up, just that's what you can use your TP for. Other than that, that's probably what you got to use it for, man.
Okay. I missed a good question here, actually. I like this one. When do you decide to split versus grouping with your team?
The ultimate question as a top laner.
Yes, of course.
Couple things go into that. You have to look at, one, obviously objective control. If Dragon's up or Baron's up, it's usually better to just group with your team to dance it. But there's a couple factors that go into that. One, if your team has like a Janna or a Nami with really good disengage, go split. Because if their team just goes all in right away, all it takes is a Janna ult or a Nami ult, and your team gets out and you take a tower. However, if you don't have that, and they have like super hard engage like a Leona or a Gnar, someone that's going to just engage super hard, it's probably better to just stay with your team. So you kind of look at team comps. If they have super hard engage, it's usually better to stay with a team with objective fighting or team fighting. If they don't, you can get away with splitting and then just TP into a fight. Just make sure you communicate to put wards down once a fight breaks out, because if they don't put a ward down, there's no minions there. It doesn't matter if you have TP or not. There's nothing you can do. So yeah, it's mostly based off team comps and objective timing.
All right. Let's take 2 more questions here. Okay, let's do. So how do you personally deal with disadvantageous matchups? What do you look for? Do you accept the losing lane, or do you still attempt to put up a fight? Matchup being something like Shyvana versus Maokai.
Okay. Disadvantage matchups. That one you just have to play. I mean, you have to play super safe, and as soon as they mess up, you have to punish it as much as possible without overcommitting. So I actually had that matchup before. I was playing Maokai against a Shyvana, and she was kind of pushing towards me, and I think we both hit level 5. And she had used W, so her W was on cooldown, and I dodged her E. So the only damaging ability she had was Q. I immediately went as hard as I could on her. I used E, W to her and Q'd her and just auto-attacked her. And won the trade super hard. Right after that, with using Maokai's sustain, I was able to kind of punish her, and then I eventually killed her just from that. Just from that one trade, because she got over zealous. It's just... If you both play perfectly, you're going to lose the matchup. You're going to lose CS. You're going to get pressured out. It's just what's going to happen. However, you have to still play in the mentality that as soon as they mess up, I'm going to punish it as hard as I possibly can to give myself an advantage. Otherwise, if you just play scared the whole time, you're just going to make things worse.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take one last question here. I think it's a good one to end on. And then I have some final remarks, some things to say, and then that's it. So last question. Do you do anything before or after a game that helps your performance, like pump up or analyzing the game after, those kind of things?
A lot of times before the game, I'll like play a normal or get some caffeine in me. You kind of want to get your mind going, get that mental focus going, especially at a higher elo. Because you may be really good, but if you're not like gauged into the game, you're not in that zone, so to speak. You can make stupid mistakes. You can flash when you don't need to. You can miss skill shots and stuff like that. Get some caffeine maybe. Get some ginkgo biloba. For those people that don't know that, it's like an herb that makes you think better. Play normal. Get yourself warmed up. And then as far as after games, whenever I have downtime, I like to review replays. Like this is really nice. You can just review a replay of yourself playing. Maybe even take some notes on what you did, what you can work on. That way the next game you have it in your head, okay, this game I'm going to focus better on CSing. This game I'm going to focus better on map awareness. Just small things like that to help improve yourself. Obviously that's taken from other sports too, like football and baseball. They look at like film of other teams. They do scouting reports. Look at film of yourself. Scout yourself. What am I good at? What am I bad at? What do I need to improve? That's the best thing you can do when you're not playing outside of a game. So, yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to be it for us and for Raika on the top lane. Thanks again for coming on the show. I want to mention again that our partnership with Summoner School events will be taking off in the next couple weeks here. So please stay tuned to that. We are also thinking about doing a different type of show once a week where we get a few of the coaches to come in and analyze something that's very pertinent in the meta, something that's maybe very hard to deal with, maybe like Mordekaiser bot or even Raika's Garen top. So if you think that is a good idea, or if you have a suggestion of something for us to cover, please go to our Facebook page or Twitter or wherever you want. Post your suggestion. If you need any of those, go to cc-lol.com and you'll find not only all our past videos on YouTube, but links to our Facebook and Twitter. Shana Tova to anybody celebrating Rosh Hashanah, and thanks for watching Coach's Corner, where we learn how to stun our opponents on solo queue. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Flying around, I got you twirling around. I've got the safest arms as you come back to the ground. Spinning around, I'm also spinning around. Tell me your favorite way to fly, no one can catch us now. Can you write me a note to say where we're gonna go? I'd like you to reply to mine. Before you put on a show, I just wanted you to know, for you I've got all of the time. You knew where I would be, and you followed my eyes when it got cold. You knew I would be by your side. You used the maggots in your smile, and after we spoke for all about. I knew that we would be riding life instead. Turning around, I got you turning around. I've got the safest voltage, you come back to the ground. Spinning around, our thoughts are spinning around. Tell me your favorite way to fly, no one can catch us now. You say you know me, but there's wiser words in the young. I think we've only just begun. And as for the letter, well, I could have no better still. I just wanted you to know. I don't know where I am right now. I struggle to make it, but we got there somehow. You spent the time to get your coat on just right, and I hung it on the door so it can last us the night.